emerging textile and apparel manufacturing in West Africa. This event was organized by the United States Fashion Industry Association, representing brands, retailers, importers, and wholesalers based in the US and doing business globally, as well as our friends at the Tony Blair Institute. My name is Shannon Brady. I'm the Communications Director at USFIA, and I'll be your moderator today. And Valerie, if we could quickly go to the next slide, I'll cover a few technical points. The first is that questions can be submitted at any time during the live program. Simply click on the question header on your webinar control panel, type your text into the box, and hit send. Our presenters will address as many questions as possible at the end of the program. If for some reason we experience a technical difficulty and lose audio, please refer to the chat box for further instructions. And a reminder that all attendees will receive a follow-up email later today with a copy of the slide deck and a recording of today's session. So I'd now like to take a moment to introduce our presenters for the day. Joining us, we have Valerie Venkatachelam. She is the country head of the Tony Blair Institute in Cote d'Ivoire, West Africa. Her work focuses on supporting governments as they turn their vision for development into reality. She typically works at the nexus of the public and private sectors on complex industrialization projects. In Cote d'Ivoire, she's focusing on developing a sustainable and competitive cotton, textile, and apparel industry. We also have joining us Robin Baxter. Robin Baxter is a fashion leader and professor at FIT with over 30 years of experience in the apparel and textile industry. After successfully launching her own brand of better women's wear and managing a global supply chain, she consulted with government and business leaders in Kenya and Uganda. She currently serves as a consultant for the Tony Blair Institute in Cote d'Ivoire. So welcome, Robin and Valerie. We're very excited to have you join us today. And without further delay, Valerie, I'll hand the floor over to you. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Shannon. It's really a pleasure to be with you today. Robin and I are going to be telling you about an exciting project we're working on, trying to help emerge a very new, very modern, very competitive textile and apparel manufacturing in West Africa. I am going, at the end of this presentation, to have a little focus on Cote d'Ivoire, and I'll explain why Cote d'Ivoire is one of the primary countries we are looking at to start this project, and I'm currently based there. First of all, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the Tony Blair Institute. As the name indicates, we are an institute, a non-for-profit, founded by the former Prime Minister of the UK, Tony Blair. We work with governments. We support the political leaders and the governments in their desire to implement their vision for a prosperous, inclusive society. We typically focus there where there's opportunities and also challenges linked to globalization. We work in two areas: government advisory, where we really focus on policies and strategies for development, and policy futures, where we're focusing much more on the impact of technological advances and on governance and on globalization. So we work on 4 levels, which is, I would say, unique to our model. First, a leader-to-leader approach, where Mr. Blair has a direct conversation on a regular basis with the heads of states we work with. Policy and strategy, which is what I have been focusing on in Cote d'Ivoire, for example, and especially on the West Africa textile and apparel grand strategy. Delivery, we also come and support the governments as they want to execute those visions. And we do so by building the institutions, reinforcing the capacities, bridging the capacity gaps that typically prevent projects from being implemented. We work in we work in 15 countries in Africa. You'll see on the map where we are, but also in the Middle East, and looking to expand in other areas of the world, especially Southeast Asia, Kazakhstan, India. So we came to Cote d'Ivoire a couple of years ago, my team and myself, at the request of the government to identify whether there were some prospects for developing textile and apparel manufacturing in West Africa. So I'm going to provide some of our insights, but typically what we did, we're really looking to adopting market-based approaches. So we've been looking at what's the industry looking at? And we realized that there is actually, for some time now, and that's not going to be news to you, definitely a move to relocate to some of the industry from, for example, China, to other parts of the world, Southeast Asia, Middle East, but also East Africa more recently. And this is also the impetus for some of the West African countries to, based on the fact that they are a very strong cotton producer in the world, to try to attract some of this investment and actually keep adding value to their cotton produce in country. So we've been engaging with brands over the couple of years, and it is in this context as well that I'm having this discussion with you today. The project, as we are thinking it, is really at its inception. It's at the conceptualization phase, and we're really keen to engage right now industry players to know what is it that would be attractive to them, what would they be expecting if they were to look at a different destination for sourcing cotton, textile, and apparel. And so what you're going to see are just really points of discussion, and would be really interested, Robin and I, to share, to collect your ideas and to exchange with you as we go ahead in this presentation. So one of the things that's important to know actually is that this is just not a blank land, right? West African governments have been investing to develop their manufacturing sectors over the years. So we're currently working with those 5 countries: Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, Ghana, and Togo. And you will be seeing that, in example, but they've been investing at different parts in a way of the value chain. Senegal has developed an industrial park and is looking to attract garment manufacturers. Cote d'Ivoire, and that's one of the reasons I'm going to focus on Cote d'Ivoire, is both a cotton producer and has an access to the port. And so he is looking to develop a vertically integrated industry. Burkina Faso is a landlocked country with a strong cotton production. Togo also with an access to the port. And Ghana already has garment manufacturing going on. This, as you can see on the map that's there, this shows the flows of cotton in the region. Cote d'Ivoire actually, 29% of the region's cotton transits through Cote d'Ivoire. Following up from my previous slide, actually, these are some of the examples of the companies that are already present in West Africa. Uniwax in printing in Cote d'Ivoire. DTRT is the largest garment exporter of Ghana. And A-Star is a really important vertically integrated project based in Burkina Faso, and is a joint venture between the government of Burkina Faso and a Turkish company, Textile. Our analysis also revealed some of the emerging industry trends. And these are some of the points that we would definitely want to hear from you in terms of how much and to what extent would you be expecting new industry as it is to integrate some of these industry trends. We've noticed, we have more than noticed, we're taking a clear direction of the green shift that is being intensified. Integration of digital transformation, the circular economy, we've been talking to some of the industry players, PVH, for example, that mentioning how, verticality was key, but as well, obviously, cost and speed to market. And that's why we thought that West Africa could be attractive in terms of its geographical position closer to the US East Coast. So these are some of the advantages that we are looking as we are framing how this industry could look like. More specifically, we are now currently thinking along those lines, building on the fact that 5% of the world cotton production comes from West Africa, with a very strong growing reputation as a premium cotton quality producer. Some of the companies that are ginning in West Africa and organizing the cotton industry in West Africa have already invested heavily into prepared cotton fiber production. We're thinking of developing eco-industrial parks, potentially looking, and that's actually one of the questions that you may have in the poll, is like how important would it be to achieve a carbon neutral supply chain? Would that be I would say a determinant advantage if you were to look at a new sourcing destination? I already mentioned some of the geographical advantages in terms of preferential access, proximity to the US and EU markets, but also preferential trade agreements that are currently ongoing, and strong transit corridors and logistics, and actually a pretty strong government stewardship to kind of get this industry right. This is a picture of dating from 2019, pre-COVID, where we had tested with some of the industry players whether there could be an interest to frame and shape a new industry in West Africa. So we had the pleasure actually to have PVH, represented there by Mark Green, H&M and Vanity Fair, coming with a delegation of 13 suppliers. And during this meeting, and this picture shows them meeting with the Prime Minister of Cote d'Ivoire, they confirmed their interest in exploring relocation for a sustainable and integrated value chain in West Africa. What the request was, like, we would want something different. We would want best in class. And we would be interested to know what does best in class mean for the industry at this stage. The second point that came out of this meeting was it would be interesting to actually have a regional approach whereby the grand strategy that we are devising with 5 of the West African countries that I just mentioned previously. So this is what we've been thinking, that what we're proposing right now to industry players is to make this work. We should just have like a collaborative partnership right from the start. Like we're approaching industry players to help us think, to work with other governments we work with, to think about what type of industry, what are the determinants and the parameters that would be interesting and acceptable and to source from West Africa. So I already mentioned the advantages in terms of vertical paths and flexible value chain solutions, higher standards of sustainability, decent jobs, best-in-class facilities. And so we are currently at the stage where we want to frame that. I'm just going to come specifically very quickly on Cote d'Ivoire because, as I mentioned, it is one of those countries that is particularly well poised to attract very quickly investment. We are looking to, have a functional industrial park, potentially investment, factories relocating to Cote d'Ivoire within the next 2 years. One of the reasons we are really keen of that is that we do believe that there's a very strong case for verticality as well as speed to market. And I think I already mentioned the lead time. From Cote d'Ivoire, you could potentially gain 10 days shipping time to the US. Cote d'Ivoire is actually really latching on this question of developing eco-industrial parks and wondering and exploring the feasibility of having a carbon neutral supply chain for the textile and apparel. What the strategy for Cote d'Ivoire is currently looking like is to have an FDI, one axis of the strategy focused on attracting international players and textile manufacturers primarily, while at the same time developing the local ecosystem and establishing backward linkages over time in order to ensure a sustainable industry and ecosystem is built. So this is also, again, shows where things stand in Cote d'Ivoire. You do have like a well-integrated and organized cotton industry. You have a gap and a missing link in terms of spinning and weaving. You have one success story in this printing company, Uniwax, and not really a lot of garment manufacturing that is industrial. Quick overview of Cote d'Ivoire also. One of the fastest growing economies in Africa. Stable rating by Fitch. I think Cote d'Ivoire is projected to grow this year at 6.5% in spite of COVID impact. You do have an investment scheme to support foreign investment in priority sectors. Typically, the government also enters into a sectoral negotiation and discussion about what could be beneficial to support the emergence of an industry, and that would definitely apply for the textile and apparel industry as well. So that's my presentation, and I may ask my colleague Robin to step in and then open the floor, and we're really interested to really have this conversation with you about what is it that you would be looking for, what kind of apparel categories would you be looking to produce should that project take place, and also how have your production needs changed since COVID?
Yeah, so those questions from Valerie are open to you guys to answer, or to just pitch in and offer any kind of feedback or question that you might have. She is going to pose a question by poll in a moment, but it's a really exciting, compelling story because of the strength of Cote d'Ivoire's economy. The population is strong, with strong population growth, and it's also an educated population. I think the proximity of where they are in the world, they are truly positioned, I think, to be part of a diversified manufacturing strategy. And what I personally love so much about this project, by it being really at the grassroots, it's kind of a grassroots operation. So the government support, the Tony Blair Institute support, and just being able to respond to the needs that you might have, where they're positioned to kind of customize or tailor a manufacturing solution for you, because we are at the grassroots of this whole operation. So things are really positioned to respond to your needs, as in whatever capacity you are in terms of representing brands, retail stores, or what have you. But again, as you look to diversify, as you look for even greater ethical responsibility and sustainability, as you look for more digital and technology-based manufacturing. So we're looking at including robotics on the factory floor, anything that we can do to speed up production, and yet bring the quality and the value that you're looking for. We'd also like to be able to respond to local needs. And of course, due to COVID, we're hoping to really build in place the flexibility and the agility that's needed to respond to very quick economic shifts. And so those are the kinds of things that we're looking to employ in setting up factory production. But we're open in terms of categories and just being able to respond to what you need. So we are looking for investment partners. And yeah, so that's what we're here for. But if you guys can chime in and ask or offer any kind of feedback, questions, or whatever, we're here to have that conversation with you.
Thanks, Robin and Valerie. We do have a poll question for our audience members that we'd like to pose. And also, as Robin said, we definitely encourage you to submit any questions that you have, because we'll open up the floor in a moment. We'll launch this poll. So to take the poll, all you'll have to do, you'll see it should be popping up on your screen. Click your answers and then press submit. So we're asking what other factors are important when considering textile and apparel sourcing in West Africa and Cote d'Ivoire, carbon neutral industrial offering, traceability of cotton to finished product, organic cotton, digital/tech ecosystem, or you're not interested in sourcing from a new destination. So we'll give you a few more seconds to submit your answers to that poll, and then we'll review those. Okay, well, thank you to everyone who took that poll. We'll go ahead and share the results. So as we can see here, 95% of the people who took this poll said traceability of cotton to finished product is very important to them, as well as carbon neutral industrial offerings. So I think on that note, we are going to turn to our question and answer segment. We'll start with those questions submitted during the live broadcast, but we continue to encourage our audience members to submit questions using your dashboard. So our first question, Valerie, what dyeing and finishing capabilities exist at this time at the fabric mills you mentioned?
So there's really one dyeing company, and that's Uniwax, which is a company from Blisco, and which does African prints. And so the sector is really extremely embryonic. There's really not a lot of industrial capacity in the region for textile and apparel. So you should really view this as being some sort of semi-virgin territory. And I'd say that could also be the attractiveness in terms of being able to define the parameters of what could this industry, which would then be, I'd say, an industry of the present and the future, what should it incorporate? But I mean, in reality, there's not a lot of industrial capacity on the ground for textile and apparel.
Great, thank you. And do you have an idea of how many workers are in the garment industry in the region currently?
Right, so I mean, it's a potential, right? There's, I mean, in Cote d'Ivoire, for example, you have, I can tell you there's about 130,000 cotton farmers, cotton producers. But in terms of the garment workers, you know, I don't have like a figure for the for the region as such. But again, that's really because either these are traditional garment manufacturers, and whatever exists in terms of garment manufacturing locally is more informal than anything else. So you wouldn't have. I mean, there's not an industry from which you can actually pick up like skilled workers per se.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Our next question is Cote d'Ivoire and the other countries in West Africa you mentioned, are they part of AGOA?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And would you be able to talk a little bit more about the infrastructure currently in these countries, roads, airports, etc.?
Right. So Cote d'Ivoire has actually, in particular, has excellent infrastructure. About 50% of the infrastructure of this whole West Africa region is actually in Cote d'Ivoire, and there's a railroad that already exists transporting cotton, for example, from Burkina Faso to the port of Cote d'Ivoire. And so in terms of road, in terms of railroad, in terms of land infrastructure, those three countries that we kind of identified as priority countries, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, and Togo, are extremely well organized, as well as international, planes and connectivity to the region. One of the things that is currently lacking yet is the direct maritime route to the US. And the reason for that is because the volume of manufactured good is actually quite, is not sufficient to open a direct road. But our analysis has also showed us, and our conversation is just like, it's going to be based on demand. And this is why we're looking at creating an industry that actually has scale over several countries.
Great, thank you. And in a similar vein, how many ports are accessible in Cote d'Ivoire?
So you have 2 international ports, if I can say, in Cote d'Ivoire, and as well as in Togo and Ghana.
Thank you. Our next question is asking how you would compare the 5 West African countries already in the textile industry.
None of them. So Burkina Faso is, I think I mentioned this joint venture with on the A-Star project. I'd say is the most advanced in terms of already having like an investor with a joint venture with the government to develop a textile factory. There is no textile factory in Senegal. Senegal is, because of a very limited cotton production, is really much more looking to develop its garment manufacturing. No textile industry in any of the other countries at the moment. So apart from local, informal, very small scale production, I want to say, but nothing on the scale that we would be looking currently. Cote d'Ivoire transforms only 2% of its cotton production currently into textile.
Thank you. So this question is asking, how do we reach a skilled workforce as a certification body?
How do you reach a skilled workforce as a certification body?
Yes.
So actually, I'm not clear about the question in terms of certifying workers?
Yeah, I think as like a third-party auditor along with.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, Cote d'Ivoire, I mean, all of those three countries, Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana in particularly, are actually they are industrialized. So you do have, and you do have a lot of industries already and the labor is extremely well structured, and I want to say organized um, in terms of labor laws and labor, and both of those countries have minimum wages. So having industrial workers is absolutely feasible. Uh, the population, as Robin mentioned, is well educated. So it's really, however, there's not really currently a lot of scope for textile or garment manufacturing, whereby you would need to train the workers. And that is part of the project that we are also thinking about. I mean, all of those components would be part of the government strategy. This is like the collaborative partnership that we are thinking about and talking about.
One of the things that we'd like to contribute to the project from FIT here in New York is to provide the training and to develop the skills of the workers. And so that's something that will be done well in advance. The sooner we can start that part, the better. But in terms of training people that can cut and sew, and from the digital implementation of apparel production, all of that is, we specialize in that. The hands-on work, we specialize in that at FIT. And we plan to put that training in place to develop the skills of the workforce, and we'll do that well in advance of any actual projects to be started on. Yes.
That's great. Thank you. Our next couple questions are related to traceability. So traceability is a very important aspect today, especially with everything going on in the cotton industry. Will you be operating on a mass balance system?
Yeah. I mean, it is indeed a very important aspect, and I'm happy that that was picked up in the poll. I'd say the interesting thing, obviously, the ginning companies and the way the sector is organized in West Africa, and particularly in Cote d'Ivoire, where you have 98% of the cotton being exported, is it is already certified a preferred cotton. So what we are looking to do and what we are exploring is how can we make sure that, given that we are looking to create a vertically integrated industry, how can we make sure that the cotton from the farmers can actually be traced throughout the supply chain? And we're thinking, we're having like moonshot thinking in terms of could that be done like through genetic engineering or traceability platforms. So this is some of the exciting parts of this project where we're currently just being able to to just design it any way we want.
But I do know that embracing, let's say, the transparency, like blockchain technology and transparency, we know that that's essential. So it's already at the forefront of our planning. So I think that I think we'll do a good job with that. We do believe in it, and it's part of our whole sustainable and ethical story.
Great, thank you. And I think you already answered our next question, which was, will it be possible to trace a particular garment to a specific farm? But I think that just underlines the importance of, this issue to our audience. Our next question, is there an administrative infrastructure that can support production office work for tech parks, markers, etc.? Tech packs, sorry, not parks.
Oh, tech packs. Shannon, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? Shannon, can you repeat that question, please, for me?
Is there an administrative infrastructure that can support production office work for tech packs, markers, etc.?
Yeah, definitely in Cote d'Ivoire. I mean, there is there's an ongoing project. There's investing in the digital transformation is one of the priorities of the government. So that this is an area. This is why it's an area we also linked up to the poll. It's definitely being thought through within this project.
Thank you. And we have a couple more questions. So can garments ship from Cote d'Ivoire to Ghana, and how long would transit time be?
That's something that we would need to work out, I think. But that's the whole point of this grand strategy, is to create a connection between the three countries that we're thinking for the first phase. So Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and Togo.
I wanted to kind of add into the point about the tech packs, administrative support for processing tech packs, and realizing how super important and essential that is. So the answer to that is a definite yes. Without that administrative support in that part of the production process, we would have many problems could emerge without having a strong administrative support for receiving the tech packs and processing and understanding the contents of the tech packs. So again, that's part of that would be definitely part of the training for individuals that would be a part of that administrative support system. But we do recognize how essential that piece of the pie is. Yes.
Thank you. So we'll give our audience members another minute or so to submit any other questions you may have. But Valerie, could you remind us where our attendees should go if they have any questions or if they'd like to continue this conversation with you?
So I guess we have at the end of this deck a series of contacts for Robin and myself. You can join me through my Tony Blair Institute email, which is v.venkatachalam@institute.global. I think these are some of the information that we will share with the deck.
Great. Thank you.
Valerie, can you mention a little bit about the two trade agreements that would be advantageous for potential investors? Someone mentioned AGOA. There is also another trade agreement. If you can just kind of mention that also.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few trade agreements actually. There's the AGOA for the US market, but also the economic partnership agreements with the EU. A recently signed trade agreement between Cote d'Ivoire, for example, and the UK post-Brexit. Also, the African free trade, continental free trade agreement that has come in force this year since January and is now in the works, that would enable easier movement of goods across the continent. So yes, so these are some of the agreement and the trade agreements that that will be the most prominent.
Well, thank you. I think on that note, we are going to conclude today's webinar. So I just wanted to thank you so much again, Valerie and Robin, for your presentation today. For our audience members, a quick reminder that you will receive a follow-up email later today with a copy of the slide deck and recording of this presentation. And again, that will include the contact information Valerie mentioned. If you have any additional questions, you can always reach out to USFIA directly at info@usfashionindustry.com. Thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to hosting you at the next USFIA event. Have a good afternoon, everyone, and a good evening, Valerie.
Thank you.
Thank you.